You have become sort of the naughtiest boy in school in some ways because you are rebelling against the government on issues that you feel very strongly about, and we understand that. But the Nationality and Borders Bill embattled Priti Patel, and by the way, the number of people who've come across the channel so far this year, 90% young men, undocumented, we know all that stuff. The numbers that have come across the channel so far this year are running at a rate of 4 times where we were this time last year. And in the end, when they revised the figures up, it was 28,000 this year. We could be looking at 100,000 people. And Priti Patel is putting in place measures where people that come across the channel will be sent off to Ghana or wherever it is, which will discourage others from coming. Why are you... Because you voted against this. You rebelled against this.
I voted against it just an hour or two ago.
Yeah. So why are you trying to stop Priti Patel doing this when she wants to reduce the numbers crossing the channel? Surely you're not for a free-for-all.
Right. One, it won't work. I mean, I agree. I mean, I started my speech today by saying, this is a really serious issue, and it's difficult. It's intractable. Governments of all persuasions struggle with this. This one, nobody could be more committed to control immigration than Priti Patel. I mean, I give her that without reservation. But this won't work. You've got to do things that work, and it's copied from the Australian system, where they supposedly sent people abroad. They only had about 3,000 asylum seekers. They put them all on an island called Nauru. I mean, also Papua New Guinea, but principally on an island called Nauru, and it didn't work. I mean, the real thing that stopped the basically bogus asylum seekers, which the Australians would tell you, coming in boats, was them turning them back.
Yes, no, I get that. But, I mean, you've said this would be a British Guantanamo Bay. I mean, it's a bit strong, isn't it?
No, because what happened, I mean, the only model we have is the Australian one, so we have to look at that. And there were 3,000-odd asylum seekers. There were 2,000 assaults of one sort or another. Some of them...
in the camps? In
the camps, and half of those were against children. There were stories. I mean, I read out a few. The stories of children trying to kill themselves because of the way they're being treated. A child that soaked himself in petrol and tried to set fire. That sort of thing. Now, we don't want that. You remember in the middle of all of the migration arguments in Europe when that child was washed up on the Turkish beach, what it did to people's mindset about migration and so on, for a while anyway. Well, imagine if you had something terrible go wrong in a camp, as it were, on our watch. How would the public respond? Because you and I think, both take the view that the public's actually very rational about immigration.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't make its judgments out of bigotry. It makes it says, well, what's this going to do to my employment? What's this going to do to my housing? What's this going to do to my schooling? Those are sensible, rational decisions. They don't want us to be gratuitously cruel.
No.
And that's unfortunately what this would turn out to be.
Yes, and they're also rational in the sense that they can work out for themselves who they believe is a genuine refugee.
Yeah,
and who isn't, and they do make their minds up on this.
And right enough, they will look at these people coming across the channel and say, mostly they're young men.
Yeah,
they're not families.
And
they're not necessarily fleeing.
And they're all undocumented.
Terrible regimes. That's right. So we have to fix. We have to fix.
So, David, if sending people off to offshore processing, as it's called, doesn't work, and I think there were about 3 of you that rebelled against the government. So it wasn't a very big rebellion.
No.
What is the answer?
Well, the answer's got to be turned back. It's got to be pushed back. We've got to either we settle something with the French, because the French, in my view, have not behaved well in this whole exercise.
What's new about that?
No, fair enough. But and of course they are in the middle of an election campaign as well, which tends to make them behave. But we've got to settle that with them. I mean, we are at the moment talking to all of our allies in Europe.
So pushback. Pushback is... So we can do pushback if the French agree. What if the French don't agree?
Well, I think we're going to have to look at the law, because, you see, I think we have to look at maritime law very closely. Maritime law is built around safety, first and foremost. What do these people smugglers do? They put these people in deliberately unsafe boats. I mean, the Australian analogy, I mean, I was talking to the ex-Prime Minister of Australia last week about this.
Tony Abbott, yeah.
Tony Abbott. And he said what they used to do is they'd scuttle a boat. As soon as an Australian naval vessel turned, they scuttle a boat, so they had to pick up all...
Then it becomes a rescue.
So what did they do then? What the Australians do? They were very clever. They took their own boats and said, here we are. You've scuttled your own boat. Here's a boat that's seaworthy. It'll get you back to Indonesia and just enough petrol
Well,
to get you there.
I'd like to hear more about pushbacks. I've always believed pushbacks the only way.
It's got to be.
But it's going to be difficult to do it within international law.
Yeah, well, you know,
Australia did it.
When you're in business, you know, did you say to lawyers, "Can I do this?" or did you say to lawyers, "Show me a way I can do this"?
Of course.
And it's the second one we need to say to our government
Fine.
lawyers: "Show me a way to make this work."
Quick thought, David. It's a personal thing.
Yeah.
An MP under parliamentary privilege said something about me last week that is completely without fact. It's leading to all sorts of difficulties, threats, goodness knows what. What are the limits? You're an MP, you've got parliamentary privilege. What are the limits? Are there any limits to it?
Well, there are no technical limits at all. You know, you can say what you like in the House of Commons. That's in order to prevent governments repressing you or whatever.
Yeah, which is a good thing.
Or oligarchs suing you or whatever. That's been a big thing in the last few weeks. But the real limit's in here. You know, the real limit is your own conscience. So, for example, when we were talking about oligarchs and people said things to me, I said, "Are you sure about that? Can you show me the evidence? Because I'm not going to say that in the Commons unless I am absolutely persuaded it's true." That's the real limit. It's the conscience of the individual member of Parliament.
And what if the individual member of Parliament doesn't have a very good conscience?
Well, that's the limit of our limits.
Well, it's an issue I'm struggling with. I've written to the Speaker. I'm waiting for an answer. David Davis, serial rebel, thank you for joining us again on GB News.